Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. I just had an amazing day today. I had a roller coaster of a day today, but how's your day? But yes, welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. Let me remind you of what this podcast is about. So, this podcast is the podcast that is here to educate you, right? So, our goal is to take a bunch of different topics and break it down in a way that you can understand and you can learn something. As we are a part of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We're all about learning, we're all about teaching. So consider this educational programming, right? And if you watch our previous episodes, we've talked about ADHD, we've talked about homeschooling, robots taking our jobs. We've talked a number of times about the tutoring industry. So, check out our previous episodes so you get a feel of what the podcast is all about. But this is an educational programming, so to speak, and we're here to get down and dirty. We're here to get real, and we are also going to have some open dialogue today. So I am looking forward to today's conversation. So today I have a brand new guest. Her name is Michelle Steiner, right? She is my new guest on the hot seat. But let me tell you what this episode is about. So while she is a brand new guest to the show, she is telling her part in a repeat topic. So I love it when I have topics repeat on the show. So she's telling her part in the 16th episode of this very topic, living with a disability. But the particular focus going to talk about what it's like living with dyscalculia. What is it? What does it look like? And what we can do to treat it. So, living with a disability, we've talked about it the past 15 times. So check out those previous episodes so you get a feel of where we go with this thread. But today is not episode, but this is number 16 of this very topic. So, I'm looking to see where this goes, and I hope this continues, right? Because I want to highlight disabilities, learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, physical disabilities. As a tutoring company, we have to highlight these things and we have to acknowledge these things because it shows up in our tutoring. It shows up in when we teach the kids. So we got to put it out there. We have to talk about neurodivergence. So living with a disability, dyscalculia, that is the topic for today. So again, my guest is Michelle Steiner, and she is going to sit on the hot seat. And let me just let you know about who she is. She is a paraeducator, a disability writer, and a photographer. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and bring her to the stage. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Gabrielle. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for coming on Hot Topics and getting in the hot seat. So let's, see where this goes.
Sure. Thank
All
you for
right.
having me.
So we are going to talk about dyscalculia.
Mhm.
I have to be honest, I don't know much about it. Um, and I'm sure there's other people that don't really know much about it either. So do you mind? So before we get into your personal story, can you educate the audience of what is dyscalculia or what is your understanding of it?
Sure. Dyscalculia is a math based learning disability. People that have dyscalculia struggle with numbers and how they work, and it goes beyond just going into a classroom with struggling with a math problem. It can go into every things in everyday life, things such as reading the face of a clock, directions, knowing left from right, being able to calculate things. So a lot of people are familiar with dyslexia, a reading-based disability, but not a lot of people are familiar with dyscalculia or dyscalculia, depending on how you pronounce it, which is the math-based one.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. All right. So I was doing some light research here,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about dyslexia, right? So there's a
Right.
difference between the two in that I mean, they're in the same family,
Right.
but dyscalculia is more focused on math, and dyslexia is more about reading. So
Mm-hmm.
now let's get into your life story about it. So, um, what's it like having dyscalculia?
Well, for me, it's trying to have dyscalculia is really it presents a challenge with numbers. When I was in school, it was a lot of counting. I really struggled with counting and forgetting the steps in a math problem. That's where uh, a lot of my issues were. But I also struggle with things such as my left from right and my eye-hand coordination. And I later found out that's one of the symptoms. We knew that was related to the disability, but we didn't quite know why. And I can remember people telling me, well, once you're done with school, you'll never struggle again. And that simply hasn't been the case for me. When I went to college, it didn't go away. So we had to get the classroom once again. We did a lot of tutoring. We did a lot of support services with having extended test time and having tutoring and making sure I was taking classes that people were had understanding professors. But in my everyday life now, it's still a struggle. I never know how I go into the store. If I get something like, if I use a debit card, it's more of an abstract concept. I'm not aware of how much money that I'm spending. It's always a surprise when I go to the cash register. But it's easier if I have cash on me because I can get a better range of how much money that I'm using. If I go out to dinner, it's hard for me to calculate the tip that I owe at the end of the meal, so I can use like my phone to tell me how much I need. That's one of the things that I'm able to do. But just if somebody tells me things math related, like halves or thirds, I'm not really able to understand that. And despite having tutoring when I was younger, I'm unable to read the face of a clock. So those are some of the ways that having that impacts my daily life.
Thank you for sharing. So now, when you say things like, so if I said, so when it comes to so like cooking, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, put half a stick of butter or something like that. So do you understand what that means?
I know that halves are a little bit easier. If you give something like a simple one, I can understand a half. But when we start getting into thirds, uh, quarter cups, those things can be really difficult. And I'm able to use, if I see it in a recipe, I can measure out things. Other than that, that can be difficult. So yeah, that's something. But even with when you were talking about cooking, if I don't have like a digital uh, clock, or I don't have, clear cut measuring cups, I'm not able to be able to tell how much I'm putting in uh, things. Same thing like, yeah, with a ruler or things. It's just like a bunch of little lines that come together.
So so then what do you do? So in terms of, I mean, do you cook? I'm
I
assuming
do
you
some cooking. Yes, I'm
okay.
able to do. Yeah, I love my slow cooker. We have it. We have one that's digital, which is great. I I'm able to I do a lot of salads. And if I am cooking or if I'm making something where I have to measure out ingredients, I make sure that I get measuring cups that are very clear. It says 1 cup, 1/2 a cup. Same thing with teaspoons. Uh, we try not to do just the 1 cup that has the lines on it. That's not one of the things. And I'm able to do, that's how I'm able to measure on ingredients.
Things in your life to I don't know how to phrase it, but it's you have to adjust your lifestyle because of your disability, right?
Yes, exactly. There is really no cure or surefire method of fixing it, but I've been able to find ways to adapt and just finding different ways to be able to do things.
So, in terms of you're not able to read a clock,
Mm-hmm.
a part of me feels a little judgmental because I'm like, okay, but you don't need it, you know?
Oh yeah,
Because,
that is
like
true.
you have digital clocks out there. So,
Right.
why is it a big deal that it's hard for you to, read an analog clock?
It's gone a lot better with our technology, with having analog clocks. That has definitely gotten a lot better. Uh, but I can remember a lot of people didn't understand when I grew up, when we didn't have as much with digital clocks. And I would ask, "Oh, what time is it?" And people would say, "Well, there's a clock on the wall." And as an adult, even about 10, 15 years ago, I can remember someone finding out I couldn't do this, and it's not a big deal. But to them, they're like, well, why can't you do this? And shouldn't you get tutoring to try to help you? And I'm not against tutoring, but we've tried a lot. So, in a lot of ways, that has passed, but there are still people that will say, oh, they don't really teach kids, or people get that idea that someone who doesn't know how to do that is lazy or less than. And it's just, that's not the issue. Or sometimes I love butterflies and Victorian things, and I'll get a lot of people, well-meaning people, will buy me watches or they'll buy me clocks that are analog, and they serve as a really nice decoration at the house, but not so much useful for telling time. But so yeah.
And you mentioned it a little bit that when you ask the time and people are very
Mm-hmm.
dismissive and say, look at the clock.
Yeah.
What? Let's dive into that more. What was it like for you hearing comments like that?
It was very difficult to hear that. It was very much dismissive, like, well, what is wrong with you? Why can't you do that? That was really hard, very judgmental, because obviously I could see there was a clock. I could see that there's the big hand, the little hand, and I can see the numbers, but I just couldn't understand how that worked. And that was really hard to be able to say that. So, and it was hard to know what time it was. And I just, yeah, that was very difficult before. And thank goodness that technology has been improving a lot of the ways that we do things and we look at stuff in life.
So it was a feeling of inadequacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you're getting a sense of like your parents and the adults in your life, they had this expectation of you to do the most basic skill, which is to read a clock, right?
Right.
To read an analog clock, but for some reason it's difficult for you, and it's
Right.
like you're not measuring up to their expectations. Is that
Right.
okay?
I would say, yeah, my parents have always been wonderful with me. They were always supportive of knowing, okay, yeah, you can't read the clock. They knew they weren't going to get a mathematician from a really young age when I was diagnosed in kindergarten. They advocated for me, but I think a lot of other people who didn't quite understand, even like sometimes teachers and just having other friends or other people that I came across within the community, just didn't really get the concept as much as my mom and dad did. So that was hard, of just not that feeling inadequate, like, well, what is wrong with me?
So now how are you, how was school for you?
School was challenging for me. I can remember when I was first diagnosed. I went and repeated kindergarten at a separate school in our district. I was still in a public school, and I had to repeat it that year. And excuse me, the following year, and I began to receive specialty services where we did reading. I was a fluent reader, but I had trouble remembering sometimes what the important details were. Uh, but math and eye-hand coordination have always been the big ones. We attempted to learn how to do math in learning support, and I also received speech services because I had fluid in my ears when I was young, so I wasn't hearing how words were sounding. And I can remember just being really frustrated. All I wanted to do was learn like my peers. I didn't want to have to go and receive all this, but it's what I needed. Uh, School eventually got easier for some things. I can remember it was pretty clear, even though I had difficulty with reading comprehension, that I could handle other courses with regular ed students. So we started out with regular ed reading, and then we did science and social studies. And I was pulled out of those classes to do if we had a test. So I got extended test time, and they would read the test aloud to me. And just being in that quiet environment and just hearing how the questions were read helped my brain to process the information. By the time I was in middle school, we dropped the speech services. I didn't need it as much. I was talking fine. We still did some support classes, but those started to go away a little more. And by the time I was in high school, I was in all regular ed except for math and resource room. So academically, and I was doing well. I made honor roll. I was in regular ed classes. They were the basic ones. I wasn't in or they were academic. So I wasn't in like honors or accelerated classes, but we were in like basic, and I was doing really good with that. I even had people though that I was in honor roll, and they thought, well, you're taking these classes and you're getting good grades, so you shouldn't be. But I just had to kind of, not listen to those voices. Socially, things got really difficult. It went ever since I was young. I was picked on for having a disability, and I was an only child for a great part for 13 years. So I was a little more mature than maybe the other students. So it was hard to relate. But elementary school was more, okay, you're not my friend, or you're not invited to the birthday party. But when I got up to high school, the bullying really intensified. And especially because people were getting their own little groups. And I just really didn't feel like I fit into any one of them. And I just had this reputation from the time I was really young as being that wasn't smart, or the one that was screwed up everything. So that was really difficult. I started hanging out with some friends that were in another school district. They were involved in an art program, and I found a lot of acceptance. And I was able to shed a lot of that reputation that I had from that age. And that encouraged me to reach out to other people in the community. And I still have relationships with some of these people, and it's 20 years past. So it was definitely something that, we went about with school. Some real issues that happened when I was in school too. My grades were great, but we were trying to see, well, what am I going to do after high school? That's always an issue. We knew we had difficulty with math. That was going to be the main sticking point. And I knew I wanted to go to college. And I can remember I had a teacher that told me, well, I don't think you can do college. And she suggested that we do a vocational training school. And nothing there interested me. So I was just like, I told her, I said, I'm just not really interested in doing that. And that was, that's what happened with her. And I can remember I was, I got in with a really great person. I had a teacher that was a student teacher that really encouraged me. She said, I think you're smart enough to do college. And if I didn't have her support, I honestly don't know what I would have done with that. And I can remember sometimes her voice was the one that would be the one that I would hear when I was struggling with college or if I was struggling with life. She definitely would be somebody that I would be listening to. And I can still remember we decided that we were going to go forward with college, and I got involved with a program called OVR, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. And I can remember right before I went into this, I was tested again for having a learning disability. And I can remember that I'm not a very good test taker. And I had somebody, the psychiatrist told me, well, you're most likely not going to go beyond a community college. And just hearing that was devastating for me as a young child. Well, I wasn't young, I wasn't a child anymore, but I was still a young adult, and just hearing those words was really hard. And I can remember just really wanting to give up. And I went into college. I decided I was going to study early childhood at our community college, and I had even some stigma that surrounded that. I had a professor that told me, well, your job choices are going to be limited. And she also told me that, I should maybe reconsider. And I can remember I didn't use disability accommodations as well. I had people that told me that, it's just not, you're getting an unfair advantage. And just hearing that too was really hard and made me not want to get the extended test time and the note taker and all the other services that were out there to help me. And I can remember just talking to them, and it was really not a great thing to be able to go and get all that note taking too, because what ended up happening was when I didn't get those, my grades really plummeted. And just having that just really just really was a detriment to me. And I can remember I had a professor that told me that what I should do is I was in her class and I was really struggling in her course. And she told me, well, why don't we at least get you extended test time? And I can just remember I went and got that service, and I still struggled in her class. I didn't do well. In fact, I think I got a very low grade in her class. But just having those services enabled me to be able to finish up my course. And I graduated with an associate's degree in early childhood education. And just having that, I was able to move out on my own, and I was able to get some jobs, and I worked with kids all throughout my life, and I really enjoyed working with them. That was just wonderful, and I liked having that independence of being out on my own. But I can just remember how hard that was, and I always wanted more for myself. So whenever I I was able to go out, and due to financial reasons, I had to move back in with my parents, and the job I was at was downsizing. So what I ended up doing was I thought, this is time that it's time for me to go back to school. And I was able to be able to do that. And when I found a program that I enjoyed doing, and I got my bachelor's degree in community programming for Americans with disabilities. And I used all the services. I used the extended test time and the tutoring, and just using those services really made all the difference. I was able to get the help that I need. My grades improved. I advocated for myself. I even made dean's list one semester. And after school, it took a while, but I was eventually able to find a job that I really like doing. Uh, that I'm at now, working with students that have disabilities, with being a teacher's aide and reading tests to them, and I really enjoy that. And another thing that I've been able to do is uh, I. Uh, I have my own blog called Michelle's Mission, where I write disability articles because writing's always been a passion. I can remember having a teacher, or excuse me, a friend that told me, you really should write about having a disability. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to write about this. But once I wrote about it, I really felt that this was the best thing that I could do. And it was the most healing thing I ever have done. And I started my blog, and I put disability articles on there. And I also take disability photography. I take a lot of pictures of things in nature, and I put them on my blog. And I just try to go and help other people and be able to educate them on what disabilities are.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You said a mouthful there.
Sorry.
I was listening. I know you were like, where did you go?
Yes.
I was listening. I was listening.
Okay.
I wanted to give you the solo view. Um, but yeah, like you went through so much adversity to get
Mm-hmm.
to where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
And talking with my other guests, who had disabilities, there seems to be a common theme, which is the haters. I don't know if haters is the right word, but like the naysayers, the people that don't believe in you, right?
Right.
Like you're not the first person I've heard say that someone in a position of power told you you're not going to make it to college.
Yep.
You're not going to get out of high school. You're not going
Mm-hmm.
to get a job. And you're not the first person to say that. And I think that is very astounding to me that there are people that will literally say to a young person, because you have a disability, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
So, that is disturbing to me. And even with college, you got the accommodations, and just for people to say, you got it easy. you know
Yeah.
you got a handout, you got it easy.
Right.
I had to work for my grade. Yours was just given to you. Like the hateration is strong. So it's just astounding to me that you know
Mm-hmm.
you have people that will say you have difficulty adding, or you have difficulty doing simple math, or
Mm-hmm.
that you're not going to make it to the next level.
Yep.
And it really is disturbing, to
Mm-hmm.
hear that. And so I like that you took all of your struggles and you turned it into your strength, right? So now you're an advocate for people with disabilities. So, what's that like?
Being an advocate is something that I go out to help other people, but a lot of times it helps me out too, because I'll I'll write something and somebody will tell me, "Oh, I thought I was the only one who struggled with that." And that helps me to be able to not feel so much alone. And it also helps me to be able to go out there. And it's so rewarding to come full circle with helping somebody, maybe through an article, or even the more tangible ways. If I'm at work and I get to help a student by reading a test to them, I get to think, well, somebody did that for me. And now I get that opportunity to do that for them. And also just showing them how to advocate, because I get a lot of students that'll tell me too, I wish I didn't have my disability, or I wish that I didn't have, things like that. And then you're able to think, okay, I used to think that way. And then we kind of go into how we advocate for ourselves.
Mm. And how do you advocate for yourself?
Well, one of the first things I always tell my students is that um, to be able to state what what the issue they're having is. If we have a student that might have an issue in a class, I always and I always encourage them that we state what the problem is, and we go up and we try to find the person that they need to speak with, and we get them to either email them to kind of schedule a time to talk to them or to go after class. I've gone up with students before that have been afraid, and we just calmly say, I'm having trouble in this class because of this. And most of the staff that I work with is wonderful. In fact, all of them are, and they're willing to go in and help them during the right time. And we just try to get that calm, polite, but being very assertive on what the issue is, and not being afraid of that and just running away from it, but running towards it.
So it's like you're teaching students what to say,
Mm-hmm.
and you're teaching them how to say it.
Exactly. Right. Yep. And a lot of times they start out afraid, or they start out thinking, "Oh, this person doesn't like me," and we're like, "Well, no, that's not necessarily the case." And then by the end of it, we have a student that's not so much afraid anymore, and they got the help that they needed for that task, and they know if they struggle again with something, what to do.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So now, do you talk to parents at all?
At our job, we don't talk a lot to families. That's not part of my job as a teacher's aide. That's just not something that we necessarily do. Occasionally, we will get a parent that'll come in, and we're able to just briefly give them a nice thing about their day, or just But we don't do a lot with that. Sometimes I do talk to parents. I will have online. I will have like parents, people that will reach out to me, and they'll say that they have a child that has a disability or has a learning disability, and I'm able to just kind of connect and just be able to try to just encourage them, and to just help them to be the advocate and be there for their child, like my parents were for me.
And that's good.
Mm-hmm.
People need advocates, especially
Right.
people with disabilities. They need advocates. They need someone
Mm-hmm.
to defend them, to say that, hey, let's encourage them to go to college. Let's encourage
Right.
them to seek employment, right?
Exactly.
And not just to stand up for them, but to help them stand up for themselves.
Right, exactly. And to encourage what their child wants to do. And yeah,
Awesome. So I wanted to throw some symptoms
sure.
of dyscalculia, just and maybe you'll let me know which one resonates with you. So I'm looking at my clevelandclinic.org. So
Mm-hmm.
things like, okay, so something like recognizing numbers and math symbols. Does that resonate with you?
I can recognize numbers, and I am more with math symbols. I don't have the kind where you reverse numbers. So that no.
So you talked earlier about counting money. That's another symptom. So
Yeah.
it's easier
Mm-hmm.
for you to use cash. Like I would think it's easier for you to use a card, but
No, using cash is easier for me because I can see the money going. That's definitely something that I'm able to do. I can count the money. It might take me a little bit longer to figure it out, but it's easier if I use cash. I can just visualize if I have $20. I can think, oh, okay, what am I going to buy? And I can just see the everything because going. And that's a lot easier than just using a card where money is more, cash is more of a concrete aspect, where using a card is more of an abstract.
oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So something like calculating change. So
Oh no, I couldn't do that. That's why I said I couldn't do a job as a cashier. No, that part, yeah, no, I couldn't count back money to know. And it's just more of a ballpark idea when I have it, not an exact.
So you can identify coins.
Yes, I can identify coins.
And can you put them together? Like if I said, give me 50 cents, would you be able to say, oh, that's 2 quarters, or oh, that's 5 dimes,
Yes,
or
yes, I can do two quarters. Might take me a little while to figure out dimes or yeah, things like that. But I do know the two quarters. I can do some of the basic.
so I'm getting a vibe that you're like you're a cash person. So if something was 44 cents, you'll just say take $1.
Yeah, exactly.
As
I am
opposed to
definitely
like here's
cash.
2 quarters. Okay. Okay. All right. Um, let me see. Let's throw some other stuff out there. Times tables. How are you with times tables?
I can do the basic, like I can do fives, I can do the ones, but when we start getting into twos or threes, I can't really do a whole lot of that. I also don't have all of them memorized, so if somebody asks me a random fact,
Mm.
um, there's a really good chance that I could. I mean, the same goes with addition and subtraction. I obviously I know the basics, but if you give me a random fact, I can't guarantee I'll be able to answer it, and most likely I'll get it wrong.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
like basic things like you can do like 2 times 2.
right.
Okay,
Uh,
but
yeah,
if but something like 2 times 12, no.
no.
Okay.
I can attempt, like I do know like the basic of the problem, but there would be a good chance I wouldn't get that correct. I mean, yeah. So I we tried a lot of memorizing flashcards when I was younger, and it just never really seemed to be able to do a lot. I mean, yes, the basics, of course, but not anything beyond that. Might be a challenge for me.
All right. Let's throw some other stuff out here.
Hmm.
Let's see. Counting on your fingers with small numbers, or just counting in general.
Right. I can count. I will use my fingers, but a lot of times, even with counting, I still don't get a lot of stuff correct.
So if your doctor was like, "How many fingers am I holding
Well, I
up?"
knew they have two. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I can count fingers if we have up. Yeah.
Okay, but something like, is it difficult for you to count up to bigger numbers, like counting up
A
to
little
20
bit.
or
Yeah.
30?
Like if we're counting up there, I might have to go back and count again. And
Like, what
yeah.
was that number? 20,
Yeah.
20. What comes after 21 again?
Right. Right. Okay. 22. Okay. Now let's go back. Okay. What am I doing?
Oh, okay. Let's throw some other stuff out here. Oh, here's a harder one. Uh, counting backwards. Can you
I'm
do
able
that?
to, I can do that. As long as it's like a low number and to, I can do it to an extent. Like if we're counting backwards, maybe with 100, of course I can count back, but I might lose a number here or there if we're really doing it. I can still remember those sheets with the graph paper we had to fill in 1 to 100. And I can always remember, okay, am I getting this right? I really want to get all this right. And the feeling proud when you got it right, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just measuring quantities, which is what we were talking about with
Hmm.
cooking. And so
Yeah.
using like a measuring cup or spoons don't really work for you.
No, they don't, unless I take out one that's specifically like a teaspoon, a tablespoon. I'm able to do that.
Right. So not those spoons that like with the circles and they have
No.
they have the fractions on it. Like it literally has to say half spoon, whole spoon, like
Right, right. Yeah.
whatever
If
it is.
it'll say that, yeah. Yep.
Or the cups that's like this is 1 cup, this is half a cup.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
So fractions, I'm assuming you had a hard time with fractions.
I do. I definitely have a hard time with that. I can still remember whenever I was, I think it was seventh or eighth grade, and we were trying to do fractions, and I thought that the bigger number meant a bigger piece, and the teacher would be like, "Oh, here's a pie." And I would want the bigger, I would think that, oh, I'm getting a bigger piece. And she goes, well, you must not be that hungry then. And I didn't understand how that was. So yeah, fractions, that can be tough for me to do too.
All right. And oh, word problems. How are you with word problems?
I I can remember when I did word problems, I was the math in general, I really struggled with that. I could do some of the reading. That was okay. Obviously, I could read what they were saying, but just I would get lost in the stuff. So yeah, word problems were another thing that was hard for me.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I want to make sure we cover these. So, treatment, you know, what are the treatments? What are you doing to deal with the dyscalculia?
There's really no like medicine or like a cure for it. So what I do is a lot of the modifications. Like I will do the digital clock. I'll do the Fitbit to be able to tell time. I'll look for things that I can do. Like whenever I was in college, I had the extended test time and a note taker. I also had calculator usage on my one of my accommodations I could use. I really didn't have a lot of success with that. And the reasoning was I could put in the numbers, but I would still get things incorrect. And it does serve a place if it's basic math and I can't go through the timetables. Okay, putting a simple problem in is one thing. And there's a chance I won't get that right. But I'm able to do things with that. I'm also not able to drive. Part of that does is
Really?
visual perception, but it's also not understanding the right from the left. So I live in a central location where I'm able to walk and blessed to have people to take me places too.
Oh, wow. What? You're not able to drive. Okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So, how does it, you know, how does it feel, not being able to drive? Are you okay? Not okay with that?
I am perfectly content with that in my life. It relieved a lot of worry off my shoulders. I can remember being, we all knew that I was not very coordinated, and that would be something that we were going to have to work on. So we waited a year before we even attempted to try to teach me how to drive or work with me with that. I can remember we lived out in the country and we had this big field, and my parents gave me the lawnmower and said, okay, here, you're on the riding lawnmower and mow the field. And I can remember instead of making really straight, perfect lines, I made crop circles. So we now know where crop circles come from. So, and if it wasn't for my mom, like we were in the car and going up the long driveway, and I would have ran into the garage. So we knew that was going to be an issue. And they said it was my visual perception when we got that checked out, because I passed everything else. And I read that it's also really common for people that have dyscalculia. It's just the processing part of having the disability with reaction time, but also left from right. I can't really tell you right or left, and trying to go and drive a vehicle and not being able to do that just wouldn't be a safe thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's something I didn't even know. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of life adjustments, like the way
Yep.
that
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with this is um I don't know if there is medication, but it sounds like you're doing a lot of life adjustments, right? So
Exactly.
you're using a digital clock.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that will drive you. You have
Mm-hmm.
you use spoons that already are pre-measured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a lot of life adjustments that you're doing.
Right. It's just a way of life. It's the same thing when I was in kindergarten with that first diagnosis. I'm not the same person, but in a sense, but I've learned in my life that this is a lifestyle, and I just have to figure out ways of things that work. And we go for, and we try to just problem solve as we go.
All right. All right. All right. And so, how old were you when you diagnosed? When you were diagnosed?
I had to be 5 or 6, somewhere around the kindergarten age.
All right. So you were diagnosed early.
Yes.
And what made your parents decide, you know what, this is serious. We got to go to a doctor.
Well, whenever I was in school, my preschool teacher thought something was going on even before that. And they put me, my parents thought, okay, well, I'm their first child. They really didn't know a whole lot to base development on. So a lot of it was the school came in and said, there's some things we're concerned about with her. And my parents, of course, gave them the permission to test me. And I was tested right in the school system. So I was really lucky. Even for the time period that I went to school, they still were not placing or diagnosing people a lot, and especially girls. A lot of times people will think, well, they're shy, or things just happen, or they're not really encouraging maybe them to be that great at math. And mine stood out like a sore thumb. So I was really lucky that it did.
So now, what if I'm wondering now if dyscalculia is more common in girls, or is it kind of
Um,
is it equal across the
I
board?
I believe it is equal. I mean, we do have a culture that doesn't always expect women to be good at math. And I can still remember that being frustrated when I was younger, because people would say, oh, you're a woman. We got to encourage you to get involved with math and science. And that's very important. If a girl is good at that, definitely go for it. Don't let that block you from being there. But I can remember that being frustrated. I think a lot of times we just, if a boy has that, it might be a little different because we don't expect them to like reading. But a lot of times they'll say, okay, girls, they like to read more. They might be more adapt towards artistic things. So yeah, sometimes that can be a factor with how they determine that. But it's the same statistics as having dyslexia. 1 in 5 people have a learning disability of some kind, and the most group that gets discriminated against that with having dyscalculia would be Asians, because everybody has that idea, if you're Asian, you must be really great at math, and that isn't always the case.
So you're bringing up an important point, which is
Mm-hmm.
stigma, right?
Yep.
No, well, not well, stigma. What's the word? Stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's this expectation of, girls are not great at math and science,
Mm-hmm.
so that goes into a problem of misdiagnosis, right?
Yep.
And underdiagnosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because is it when you have a girl who's actually no, I think I'm thinking about it backwards. So something like girls are there's a like a belief that girls are less likely to do well in math. So they're
Mm-hmm.
probably like, oh, it's understandable why she has dyscalculia, right?
Right.
As opposed to a boy that, is expected to do better in math and science. So when he has dyscalculia, it's sort of like, I don't understand, you're not fitting the stereotype of, you're supposed to be better at math. So
Right.
it feeds into, and then you also brought up racial disparities as well,
Mm-hmm.
with Asians and their stereotype of Asians are good at math. And so if there's an
Mm-hmm.
Asian with dyscalculia, it's sort of like, wait, it's
Yeah.
a stereotype. So, and that goes into a deeper problem of, because
Mm-hmm.
there's gender stereotypes and there's racial stereotypes, that students get misdiagnosed and students get underdiagnosed. And you brought up a very serious problem.
Yes, definitely. It's, yeah, people have, yeah, how people don't get diagnosed, or the misdiagnosis with that. And another thing that it's more now, people can't see the disability. So I'll tell people, oh, I have a learning disability. And they're like, well, you don't look like you have one. And we try to tell them, well, that's not visible. Or I'll get people that'll say, well, you have a bachelor's degree. You must have overcome this. And you have to be like, well, I might have the degree, but I still have the disability.
Right. And another point too is
Mhm.
that I think as an adult you can get away with it, because there is
Hmm.
so much technology now
Oh
that
yeah.
that'll do things for you, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, you prefer cash, but you don't have, like, even like you said, like, you don't work with coins. You prefer the actual cash, right?
Hmm.
Or, I mean, that
Yeah.
kind of goes against the technology point, but still, or like using a Fitbit, right? Using a
Yeah.
digital clock. There's so much, using a calculator. Like, there's just so much technology now
Yeah.
that
That you.
you don't really have to. It's like you don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to think anymore. You don't have to calculate anymore. There's things that'll do it for you.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of things out there. There's even, I haven't tried this myself, but there's digital rulers and measuring tape and things that can do that too. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there we've come a long way with trying to provide accommodations for all people and creating that universal design so that everybody can be able to enjoy and can be able to live and just have those modifications.
Yeah. So let's start to wind things down now. So I know we're
Okay.
having a lot of fun. So now, what is your? So we'll end on this note, and then the words of wisdom. So what is your feelings about all these modifications, all these technologies that are out there that are helping kids, helping adults? What is your feeling about all these accommodations that are in college now? What is your opinion of all these technologies and modifications and accommodations, and what is your opinion about all these?
I think all the accommodations are wonderful for people because people are able to get the information and we're becoming more inclusive with that. And I slowly, I hope that the idea that these things are cheating or making life easy or making people lazy, I hope those go away because it's what this is designed for is to help people with disabilities. But the beauty of it is a lot of these services and a lot of these things can help somebody else out that doesn't have a disability and just make their life easier.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So, on that note, let's start to bring things down.
Okay.
So, I like to ask my guests about words of wisdom that they would like to share with our audience. So, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I would like to just tell people that have disabilities, or even if they don't, if there's something that they're struggling with, not to give up and to just keep on going out there and looking for things that, finding a way to do those things.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me on Hot Topics. This was a very enlightening conversation. It's a lot that I didn't even know. So I'm glad that we had this conversation. All right, it is promo time. Okay, you guys. So, Michelle Steiner, she doesn't have a lot of contact information, so it's not a lot for you guys to follow, right? So, you can learn about her and her services. She has a blog. You can go to michellesmission.blog blog. Okay, so there you go. So Michelle's with an S, Michelle's mission dot blog. So go to her blog to learn about her and her services. You could also follow her on Facebook. Uh, it is her personal profile, Michelle Steiner. So just look her up and you'll see her. She is also on Instagram. The account handle is Steiner7250. That is Steiner, Steiner 7250. So I encourage you to follow her on Instagram, follow her on Facebook, and visit her blog to learn more about her services and everything that she has to offer. Michelle, can you tell us briefly about your services? What do you do? What do you offer? Tell us about your business.
Sure. What I do is I have a blog called michellesmission.blog. And on my blog, I write about disability articles. I do a lot of nature metaphors, just to and other metaphors, just to kind of compare life with the disability. And I also, being that I can't drive, I take a lot of pictures. So I will be able to bring out details or find things that other people might miss when they're driving. So I put a lot of photography on there of some of the pictures on my adventures.
Awesome, awesome. So there you go. So you guys go to that blog right now and check all of that out. The website again is Michelle's mission.blog. You could also follow her on her personal Facebook profile. Just look her up, Michelle Steiner. And you can also follow her on Instagram. The handle is Steiner7250. So all of this information, of course, is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen if you are watching this on video. But if you are listening to this on a podcast right now, all of this information is in the description. So check it out, you guys. Either way, this information is at your fingertips. All right. So, Michelle, thank you so much again for joining me on Hot Topics.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, you guys. So now it is just you and me. So let me get my information up there. All right, you guys. So this is definitely an enlightening conversation. Um, um, sorry, I wanted to just have you interject with something.
Oh,
So
sure.
where can and we're about to run into overtime, but that's okay.
Okay.
Can you, if any parents suspect that their child has dyscalculia or they suspect that any child has a learning disability, what can they do?
The first thing I would do is, depending on the age, talk to the parent, the child's teacher, their pediatrician, but just being able to go and talk, or even if they have early intervention services, to just be able to talk to professionals and to be able to express their concerns.
All right, there you go. So if there's any suspicion
Mm-hmm.
of learning disabilities or to talk to a professional about it.
Yes.
Fabulous. All right, thank you. I'm going to put you backstage again. All right, so sorry, I just wanted to interject with that point. So if you have any suspicion of any learning disabilities, um, I encourage you to talk to a professional, talk to your pediatrician, talk to your physician, talk to a school counselor. But I do encourage you to talk to a professional if you have any suspicion at all. But yes, so now back to the closing. This podcast is a production of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if your child is struggling academically in any way, right? So whether it's math, whether it's reading, writing, or any history, science, any subjects, right? Any of the core basic subjects. We also do SAT and ACT as well. We do some high stakes exams. So if your child is struggling academically in any way, I encourage you to seek our services. We offer tutoring services in person if you are in the New York City area, but we also offer it virtually as well. So if you are looking for a tutor, if you're looking for a homework helper, if you need a motivator, someone to help with time management, any of those things, reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also email us at success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also call or text us. I strongly prefer text. You can call or text 347-762-2838. We are also on a variety of social media platforms and you can message us directly. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Eventbrite, and WhatsApp. So you can send us a message through those platforms. You can also follow us on those platforms. So while you're on those platforms, sending us a direct message, or while you're on any of those platforms, follow us. So follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook as well. So follow us on Eventbrite and WhatsApp and Instagram. So all you have to do is just type in the name A Step Ahead Tutoring Services and we will pop up. Look for the pencil with the gray and black tip. That is us. So I encourage you to follow us on our social media platforms. Again, I'm going to give you the website. It is www.stepaheadtutoringservices.com. I also noticed that I have an international audience with the podcast. So if you are outside of the United States, I encourage you to email us at success@a-step-ahead-tutoring-services.com. We are also on WhatsApp if you are in another country, if you're not in the US, if you're in Canada or anywhere else. We're also on WhatsApp, so you can contact us if you're an international audience member. But yeah, so our services expand beyond New York City. We go nationally, and we can even do internationally. Depending on the country that you're in, reach out to us. There's so many ways that you can communicate with us. So I encourage you to reach out to us if you are looking for any kind of academic help, academic assistance. Reach out to us today. I also want to encourage you. Let let us know your feedback about this episode for today. Did you learn something? Did you not learn something? What didn't we talk about? Let us know your feedback. So if you're watching this on video right now, drop a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. Let us know your thoughts about this episode for today. If you're listening to this on a podcast, whether it's Good Pods or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you're listening to this on a podcast, drop a rating, drop a star. Let us know your thoughts about this episode for today. If you're listening on Podchaser, you can also drop a comment as well as a star. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, give us a rating, give us a comment, let us know your feedback about this episode for today. All right, you guys. All right, so that is 1 second. Okay. That is it for the episode today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to you joining me at the next episode. Thank you again, you guys. And now I am signing off.